All right, so here we are back with episode 2.
Yeah,
of the Shooting the Shit series. Pretty exciting.
absolutely.
Yeah, we're a little bit delayed. Not our typical Thursday. Definitely ran into some issues.
We have some large holes to deal with. No pun intended.
Oh man, yeah, it was a triumph, really.
No kidding.
An extended trip in Kelowna, but yeah. Anyways, for those that don't know, hit a pothole in the S.S.S, bent both of the wheels, blew out both of the passenger side tires.
Brand new tires.
And so had to get some new ones, I guess. But yeah, whatever. We're stuck in Kelowna for an extra 4 days, so now we're shooting this now. So.
Yeah, it's all good. Better late than never.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So at least we'll get a little, like we still said, once a week. And we'll still tune in. Next week will be Thursday again, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Unless any other unforeseen circumstances arise.
Oh, better not.
Yeah, no kidding.
So much money into that car in the last week, but
front tires, boom. Fuck,
yeah,
no.
But there's a few things coming next week that were not accidental that are going to get thrown on at the end of next week. For Papa Smurf, might get a little bit louder.
Yeah, a little more. It might make a little more throatiness. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be good.
No kidding.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. So yeah, today we want to talk about just sort of getting into the cars and sort of just the process involved in that.
Yeah, getting into them. Yeah.
Yeah, and just sort of cost of not really cost of ownership, but just sort of cost of insurance and just things like that. Just sort of we just want to explain sort of what you went through to get into Stitch and even the golf if you want or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We can go through it all. Yeah. There's a little bit of everything I'm sure for all the cars.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of the process, but I'm sure everybody's wanting to hear, what it takes to get into these cars or what it looks like on the back end, because the front end looks intimidating, and I feel like a lot of people don't, they don't think that they can do it or whatever because they just don't know. But yeah, we'll kind of just go through the process with Stitch and what insurance looks like, rough costs for maintenance, because I'm sure everybody's wanting to know on that kind of jazz. So we'll kind of we'll work at it from the front end and work our way to the back. So essentially, obviously, there's only a couple lenders that are going to lend to these cars. You either lease these cars or you buy them cash. There's no really any financing because most banks don't don't fund anything over $200,000. So pretty much everything after that, you're kind of on your own. So a lot of people just lease them or just pay for them cash. So that's right off the hop, two different setups that, there's no other alternative essentially.
Right.
The other big thing is just working up to that dollar value, right? If you've never leased or financed a car, going into $500,000, obviously not, it's going to sticker shock you. You're not even going to know what to expect, right?
Yeah.
So I've worked my chain up all the way up from the S4, which was $48,000, and everything in between up to the half. Yeah. So I've built the relationship, built the process, I've understood the game on how to get there. Because at the end of the day, the bank just wants to see a pretty picture.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of play around with that too, but at least then you're not as sticker shocked. Because I was definitely sticker shocked originally when I first looked at a V12. I was going from an $1,100 payment to a $3,800 payment, to give an example. And
it's a huge jump.
Yeah, it's a big jump, and if you're not expecting it, it's going to throw you off, and then it'll actually shy you away. So what happens? A lot of people, I feel like, they just get hit with that, and then just look back, they'll turn around. Obviously, if you make a lot of money, you're not going to really care. But I'm kind of referring to the people that are on the fence or in between, because I still think that you can do it,
right?
Regardless of what it is. But that's your big thing, and obviously, down payment. You obviously need a heavy down payment. It's a fact. Most of these lenders want 30% down on the car value. So, you can't just hop into it without it. So that's obviously makes a significant difference. The more money you put down, the better it is, obviously. So, but that's the front end style. The process was crazy. I ran I think 30-page documents, so for everything from bank records to 2-3 years of financials. You have to show everything. They wanted all 4 pieces of ID because there's been a lot of fraud it was a very like in-depth process to go for this. The other cars that I've had were a little easier.
Right.
You kind of just, same thing that they just want to see like a T4 or company's financials for a year or two. And then,
and like those other ones, like for lack of a better term, they're just more common. Like it's just
it's easier,
more regular.
Yeah, even the R8 wasn't that bad. Like it was very simple, but this was very, very specific when it came to with the leasing company. So it was crazy, but that's you got to be patient. You got to actually want the vehicle. You give up on it, like you'll get hit with roadblocks left and right.
Right.
To go hit with that. So that's like the biggest thing. People obviously talk about like interest rates and all that jazz. Well, there's no low interest rates on these kind of vehicles.
Right. That doesn't fluctuate. It's just,
it's just it's 5.9 and up.
Yeah.
There's no getting 0% or 3% or whatever.
Yeah.
All these other people get is because Lamborghini or better term Ferrari, they don't offer in-house financing. It's all done private lending essentially, so they have like a set standard for that. So that's a good preparation to start. So as long as you got 30% down, you have a good income to debt service it, and you have a couple of years in history with the banks,
right,
and have shown that you can handle it, anyone can really do it.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has a problem with that. So, and then we know if we start shuffling into like just costs and small things on it, like obviously fuel costs in every car is going to be different. Like the R8's going to be different than the Mustang, and
the Mustang's something else, let me tell you.
Yeah, she goes through water like air.
Oh god, even the exhaust fumes, it's like just solid fuel. It's like, it's not getting burned? Okay.
Yeah, no doubt. You just have like a filter system at the exhaust pipes, just holding it so like it falls through, like it kind of filters its way back into the engine, kind of
literally
spare on like the 10%.
Oh, just reuse it. Yeah.
So like your average fuel cost on like this car, it's, I don't know, anywhere from like $60 to $70 a fill. The where the light turns on, it turns on at the fourth quarter, so it doesn't actually want you to go down because it guzzles so much fuel that if it didn't alert you at the third quarter, you'd probably run it down to the ground.
Right.
So definitely burns a lot more. Like I probably, on a tank of gas, I can get to Canmore and back. That's about it.
Right.
So it's
then obviously like huge fluctuation depending how you're driving it too. Right?
Yeah, you push on it, it goes down. Yeah. So it's a big thing, right? Like if you want to take it out for trips or whatever, if you're doing that, like it's very important to understand that, you have to plan for fuel.
Yeah.
Wherever you're going, whether you're adding into your budget or you have to like make sure that you actually hit stops.
Yeah, just planning the stops.
Planning the stops because you can't just go.
Yeah.
Car does guzzle. I mean, it has 12 cylinders, so Stitch likes to drink. We'd call it an abnormal alcoholic. But hey, you know what I mean? Or how that one guy said he was a recreational drinker.
Yeah.
Stitch is a recreational drinker. Doesn't drink on the weekends, just on the weekdays when it feels like it. But
sure.
But like it's not crazy, Obviously, again, it burns a lot of fuel, but it's kind of part of the game.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like the biggest thing I've noticed as I've started to jump into more higher end, like high performance cars, is it seems like I guess when cars are so capable of pushing the limits and driving fast and things like that, you burn so much more fuel. Like
100%.
If something's fun to drive, you're burning more gas. Like that's just the truth. Because
it's the same thing as a human. You go do physical activity and you are doing it at a higher level. You're burning more calories, so therefore you need to rehydrate.
Yeah,
it's a sports player.
Yeah, no, for sure.
With Gatorade and stuff like that. So
exactly,
but it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Heavier the pedal, the more to the metal. You're gonna go visit the station a little more often. It's kind of how she goes.
100%. Yeah. So,
but that's kind of the whole jazz. I'm sure a lot of people wanted to know cost on that or how I got into like the car, like the buying process. So again, like it's pretty in depth. I'm not gonna get into like detailed numbers of what my payments are or like what kind of money I put down. But obviously, you guys can make, most people can just do their own calculations of like 30 to like 48% and all that jazz. And then insurance, there's, people always ask, what's insurance like on this car? Or like, how much do you pay? And they actually get very rattled when I tell them when they pay more for their like 3 Series than I do for both my cars. They're just like, holy crap. I don't have a pretty driving record either. I still have 3 tickets on there. But there's just ways that you need to learn on how to do it, right? You can go through exotic car insurance on it, where, you know, some people already know about it, but a lot of people don't. Because if you've never been in that world, you wouldn't really know that it exists. But there's insurance providers that cater specifically to exotic vehicles or like collector cars.
Yeah, for sure.
So premiums are a lot less.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I pay, I think, $3,000 a year for the Aventador. But I'm not on exotic car insurance. I unfortunately got booted off because of my driving record. So I'm hoping to get back on next year. So it'd probably be even less. But even just on regular insurance, it's, you know, $3,000 a year is very reasonable. Like I pay for both my cars currently like $400-ish a month, which
right. Because the reality is like, yeah, you drive this car a lot, but it's not your daily. Like,
no,
you wouldn't call it your daily driver. Right?
No, and honestly, you can't even report it as a daily, because if you did, you would actually burn yourself down. So most of these insurance providers want to see that you have a form of something else.
Right.
Yeah. So like whether you buy a beater car or whatever, so you can just satisfy that. And so by all means, I used to do that too. I drove a shitty ass Mazda Protege and had an RS7 sitting in the garage because that's just how it needed to be.
Yeah.
Right, so there's ways to learn the game, but it's not as expensive as people assume.
Right.
Obviously, I think the big thing is maintenance, like maintenance on the car and the reliability. Like, yes, it is a Lamborghini. It is very expensive. I think a lot of people are just like, you know, they think that it's expensive, but until you actually know, it's quite expensive.
Yeah, I mean, even myself, like seeing, you know, like repair bills from Audis versus American cars, they're
very
much
different.
But then meeting you and like just having conversations of, you know, stuff that's gone into Stitch, into the Aventador is just a totally different.
Yeah.
Like you said, the whole sticker shock thing. Like obviously I'm not buying this car, but I got sticker shock even when you're talking about the repairs. Like it's such a different caliber of vehicle. I guess just like what you said, like a high performance athlete, like they get the best of the best.
Yeah, right. Like you're not getting a massage therapist that works on the corner of 64th and 16th Ave, right? Yeah. You're getting top of the line, so you got to pay for it. But it's crazy. Like to give an idea, like my oil change annually is anywhere from $2,500 to $2,800 for just a regular oil change. Put that in perspective, that's 28 regular car oil changes. So it's a lot, and
that's a huge difference.
And like the main, and then the big service every 3 years on the car, I think is like $5,200. And then obviously like cars under warranty, so a lot of the stuff's been done there. But again, you get the best people to work on the best cars, you got to pay, and the parts aren't cheap and all that jazz. But it's kind of how it goes. Like the R8 used to be $500 an oil change, and I thought that was crazy, just for a basic oil change. And then you go here, and it's, you know, it's 4 times as much, 5 times as much. So yes, to answer a lot of people's questions in terms of fuel, like maintenance cost, it is expensive. Like you have to be prepared that at least once a year you're going to drop, you know, $3,000 on service.
Yeah.
But if you think about that, if you look at, let's say, like an Audi or like a high performing German vehicle, if you actually add up all the services that you do within a year, you wouldn't be too far off.
Yeah, like for like the S.S. just got its like major like.
Yeah, how much was that?
Yeah, so that was the 50,000 K service, and that was $2,200.
Yeah, so you know, and then you do another oil change in the year.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you know whatever else comes through it, and next thing you know, you're at like $3,000.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a big service. Like my big service is a little more.
Yeah.
But it's also in retrofit. The S6 retails for $100,000.
Yeah.
And you know the Aventador S retailed for $600,000.
Yeah.
So the difference it's not 6 times the value of service. So people need to understand that.
Yeah.
It's like you got to pay to play.
Yeah, for sure. And like the other thing too that I've noticed, I mean, like having the cars up on these lifts is actually pretty interesting looking underneath.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of where the cost comes from, because you look underneath your car, it's beautiful, it's perfect.
Yeah.
There's panels, it's flat, like you look under our Mustang, like we're sitting right here, you
can
see
everything. Yeah, totally.
Under the R8 and even more so the Aventador, like you have to take off 3 or 4 different panels to get at stuff. Like it's just it's more engineered, right?
Yeah, totally. And there's just a lot more to it. It's a bigger engine, so more fluids.
Yeah, exactly.
More drain plugs, a lot more of everything, right?
Yeah.
Same with like bigger car, it pushes more power, you're going to burn through more tires.
Yep.
It's like, a set of tires on the Aventador is about $3,500 for PS4s and a little bit less for P0s. So, again, like, you need to be budgeting or, like, and keep that in mind that, like, you might go through a set a year. You might go through a set every 2 years, but you will run into that. So if you're not mentally, it's all about being sticker shocked. I think that's the biggest thing is I think people can afford things.
Right.
But I think it's just, they just don't realize the sticker shock
yeah.
of these different things. And then when it hits them, it, like, stuns them and then they back out.
Yeah, for sure. Because, like, if you look at it with the perspective of, like, yes, they're two different things, but similar dollar figure of like a normal sized house, and you have maintenance on that, it's going to cost, like, people would relate more to that because it's, their house, it's something that they do, but we're talking very similar values.
Yeah, totally.
Like this. So really it's all your perspective, really.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And just understanding. And at the end of the day, it's like, if it's your passion and you want it, you'll find a way to get it.
Yeah.
You'll find a way to take care of it all. But it's not like it's rocket science to get in. Like, there's guys that have millions of dollars in the bank that still can't get approved on these cars, right? So it's not about income, and I think people look at it too much that it's income. Like, yes, obviously you need to have income. Like, you can't just work at McDonald's or office administrator or whatever, and something that's of that kind of nature and qualify.
Right.
Yes, you need income, but I think it's not as much as people assume.
Yeah.
Because the stigma behind it, where it's like, if you don't, if your net worth isn't 4 times this car, if you can't buy this car 3 times over in cash, you can't buy it. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go look at guys that live in like $10 million homes. Like, are their net worth freaking $30 million? I would beg to differ.
Right.
Or could they buy that house cash 3 times over? I would beg to differ. You know what I mean? I just think people just stereotype it on the car because it's the only asset that everyone can truly see all the time. So then they're more susceptible to people having more opinions towards it as to how or what.
Yeah. And it goes along too with the stigma of people just assuming that, you buy the Lambo for the name or for the doors that go up.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever it is. Like, that's their perception. It's very challenging to change that.
Yeah, totally.
Obviously, I've heard like that's what you're trying to do, but it'll take time for the average person to associate that, versus their house or something like that. But like, all those people with like vacation properties in the Okanagan or whatever, like, that's their choice. They could have had a vacation property or Stitch.
Yeah, totally.
Essentially.
Yeah. So it goes down to the vices. Remember we were talking about the boats.
Yeah.
And like the Sea-Doo. Like, ask Brad how much Brad just spent on a Sea-Doo.
Ugh.
30 rack later. Well, I mean, not 30, but close. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about the vices, right?
Yeah.
People, I was always told, and this is what everyone always told me that mentored me, you can't have more than like 1 or 2 vices. Right. Unless you have a lot of money. And even at that point, it's hard to even maintain that because your vices that you have end up going up in value in dollars. Yeah. So again, it's hard to maintain all of them. Like, you're into traveling, no problem. You're into water sports or toys, you want boats, whatever, like, no problem. You're into cars, you're into watches, whatever your vice is. Yeah. It's going to cost you just as much.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want all of them, then you're going to have to make one hell of a lot of money to sustain it all. But that goes with anything in life. You want 30 kids, well, you got to be able to sustain it instead of 1. Yeah. It's the same kind of concept.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like, it goes along with anything. Like you said with the boats, you're using it all summer, and then you're prepared to drop, $1,000 a month to store it in the winter when you're not even using it. Like, that's a different conversation. Whereas, like, stuff like the cars, like, at least you're getting the use out of it year round. Like, that's why you have winter tires on it. Like, there's 2 beautiful cars sitting here all winter, and like,
you can't do anything with them.
Exactly. Just unfortunately, like, I mean, we're never going to take the Mustang in with all the rocks. Like, it's just like the paint job on that car is not worth it. Yeah, totally. But even the R8 being rear wheel drive, like, I could spend the money and put the winter tires on it for the few days a year in Calgary that you can drive it. I mean, this year has been exceptional, so it's been pretty hard to watch you just rip around.
I'm pretty sure I've like changed so many people. Like, I know like 3-4 people on top of my head that put winter tires on their cars.
Oh, I believe it. Trust me. Whatever I get next, I'll make sure it's all-wheel drive. Because like with Calgary and like the Chinooks and stuff like that, it's very possible. Like,
well, even like today, it's 3 degrees out. We were minus 40 last week.
Exactly. Like it's so different. Like
Yeah.
I think like Saskatchewan or like Winnipeg, I think is a pretty different conversation. But when you have like the breaks from winter that we get here, like it's pretty sweet. So.
Totally. But yeah, you know, if people really want to know how you get into these kind of cars, you just got to really want it. It's got to be your vice, unless you have a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure. And like, you know, knowing the ins and outs and learning and educating yourself. Like, you know, like you know so much more than the average person would because you've been through this process. But you put that effort in to go through that process.
And you have to like, you're never going to know without doing all the steps and learning it like hands on.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like you want this car, well, you got to build up to it. It's the same thing with a house. You're not going to go and buy a $10 million house if you've never owned a house in your life.
Exactly. It's just not going to work.
You're not going to understand the responsibilities behind what comes to that $10 million home.
Yeah.
And everything associated with it, and everything you need to do, and everything you need to know, and all the ins and outs on insurance, and what's that, security.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you got to build yourself up. It's like weightlifting. You're not going to pick up 100-pound dumbbells if it's like your second time in the gym.
Yeah.
Don't matter how big you are.
Yeah.
Right? You need to understand technique and the strategies and how to like work your muscles up and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of the same concept. Like at the end of the day, like you can imply to everybody.
Yeah.
I think the sickest example is the boat.
Yeah.
You know, like if you take your boat plus a truck and a Sea-Doo, well, you're not too far off from Stitch.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? And like, you know, you look at how many people live in Calgary that live in a normal double attached garage house.
Yep.
That have a sick boat, a huge truck, a bunch of toys and side-by-sides, but there's no stigma around them that's like, oh, you know, you got to make 3 times that, or your net worth isn't that.
Yeah, for sure. And then like when you look at like, you know, the bigger houses in like Springbank or like Rocky View area, like all those kind of things, like, you see the sale price or whatever it is, the list price for those houses, but you know, there's so much more behind the scenes that unless you're in there or you know somebody really well, like, you know, different property taxes or like upkeep with the land, like if you're not doing it yourself. Like as an example, like my uncle in Kelowna, his 10-acre property, it's on the lake, it's beautiful, but it's in the agricultural land reserve. So he keeps orchard in like a section of orchard that he leases out to the farmers so that his taxes aren't as much because he's part of the agricultural land reserve, even though it's a beautiful home on the lake.
Crazy.
So there's so many different ins and outs that, like, you know, if
you gotta play the game.
Exactly. Like if you're in that world, you know it. So, you know, anybody that's is trying to step into that world, like I imagine you just have to, you know, have conversations with people that have seen it and like been in it. Yeah.
And anyone who's making assumptions or judgments just really aren't into it that hard. Yeah, okay, people drive nice cars or have nice homes, but they're not into it for the long run, or they're not into it as deep or understand it as much. So, but that's what I think.
Yeah, for sure.
There's too much stigma around the vehicles because, again, vehicles are the one thing that people see all the time.
Yeah.
You know, no one's going to see a boat unless you're going to the lake.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's really going to see your house or know where you live because everyone's very, what do you want to call it? Not reframed. Low key, I guess. I don't know. Like,
right. I
can't find the word that I'm looking for.
Yeah,
they don't want to know where people. They don't want people knowing where they live.
Right, and like with the cars, it's like everybody has a car. Everybody can relate to how much their car costs versus somebody else.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're looking at some beautiful house in Kelowna that has, you know, a boat and Sea-Doos in the dock, like, people might not necessarily know how much those things cost.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying people don't buy that to flex, because, like, if you're downtown Kelowna and somebody's blasting their music in their bright green boat, okay.
I mean, it's sick. It's
Yeah.
like a Lamborghini on water.
Yeah, basically. So it's all just perspective, and I think the Lambos have that, or, you know, any high-end car, really, especially one with doors that go up. Like, it's just visually, people can say, oh, well, my car doesn't do that. My car doesn't sound like that. Like, it must be so far away. From my reach or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. So I think there's lots of ways. If you really, like, at the end of the day, like I said, if you really want something, you figure out a way, or you learn the process of getting there. And I wouldn't let people or costs that are with it shy you away.
Yeah.
Because I think people would, you know, then you don't want it as bad.
Right.
But I think like the ins and outs, like, you know, yeah, you can pay cash for vehicles, but realistically speaking, until you funnel up that 500 grand, it's, or whatever it is, it might take a while, or it might not be as useful in there as it would be somewhere else.
Right. Like,
so you need to understand the process.
Yeah. Like your money can always be working for you elsewhere.
Yeah. Than in a car and buying cash. Hence why a lot of people don't buy them cash and they just do it this other way. Right. Cool thing about though is it doesn't actually report on the bureau, which is something that I never knew. And a lot of people don't probably know that. So yes, my car does not show up on my credit report. So if a bank was to report it, it doesn't pull up on it. So it's kind of cool to know, and that's why another reason why a lot of businesses pull leases versus cash is because it doesn't impact their ability to pull money from the bank or still be liquid.
Right.
So there's lots of ins and outs and lots of tricks and all that jazz that people learn, but at the end of the day, you know, if you really want it, you can do it.
Yeah.
Buying the car is, and the other thing, just patience and having the will to execute it. But
for sure, like when you have that passion, like
you'll find a way.
Yeah, most passions cost money, and if you're passionate enough about it, you'll figure out a way to make it. Like
it's like my buddy sold that, you know, watch for 250 grand.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the guy who bought that is on a different level, but the point being, it's like, you know, if that's what that guy really likes, he's going to spend that money into it.
Yeah, for sure. And like he'll see the value beyond just the astronomical dollar figure that somebody else might see.
Yeah.
Right? Like
which is exactly it.
Exactly. Like it's more valuable to you to own that possession. It's more valuable for you to be able to drive Stitch because of, you know, your previous goals and dreams and you know, whatever like that, right?
Totally.
Whereas somebody just looking for a sweet car
might not be it, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, like the whole network stuff behind it too, and driving these vehicles, like car pays for itself indirectly.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that people don't realize. It's like, yeah, it costs money, but you also indirectly, it pays for itself.
Yeah.
With any vehicle, right? So to a certain level.
Yeah, because yes, it draws attention, but you can funnel that attention into, you know, business opportunities or things like that. Like it's not just getting the attention for the attention.
No, yeah, it's, you know, you get credibility and like it changes a lot.
Yeah.
The perspective, and you know, and it doesn't have to be a Lambo. It can be of any nature, from like whatever kind of car up to, you know, a Bugatti. It won't matter.
Yeah.
If you look at it in a positive way or in a different angle, you know, you'll see the benefit behind it. If you don't, then you're just gonna say you sunk money into a vehicle.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's pretty funny too. Like going back to the stereotypes, it's very obvious for me. So on any given day in the summer, I could be driving the R8 and the Mustang sort of back to back.
Yeah.
So for example, I was in this area right by the vault and drove the R8 to the gas station, and one guy was filling up his jerry cans or something like that. He was there for a while because I saw him twice within an hour because I filled up the
Jesus, he was preparing for a zombie apocalypse.
Well,
how many jerry cans do you have?
Well, probably. So
like 15.
Yeah, so like I'm filling out the R8 and he's just sort of looking at me like not saying anything, like I'm, you know, just being friendly, you know, give him a smile when we made eye contact, and he just sort of just stood there. I was like,
whatever, man.
Whatever. And came back 10 minutes later to fill up the Mustang at the same station. He was still there, and and his face just like lit up. And he's like, "Oh, like that's a sweet car. Like I love it." And then he would actually approach me and talk about it. So he didn't feel comfortable doing that, or he didn't. Maybe he just didn't like the looks of the car or something.
Yeah.
It could be anything, but like he didn't, you know, feel the need to come and say something or feel comfortable to say something. Whereas in the Mustang, which on paper they're the same amount of money, like. That's what a lot of people don't understand is, you know, this green 66 Mustang, it was being built for 2.5 years. Yeah. Like there's actually technically more money in that car than there is in the R8.
Yeah.
But people don't associate a classic car. They associate it with like their childhood or like, oh, my grandfather has that.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've heard my grandfather had that car is like, oh my God, like, cool, thanks.
Right on.
Like I think everybody's said
that. The old timer of the group.
I
guess. The dadmobile for daily.
I guess.
The grandfather car for a toy. Like what's next? The grandfather clocks hanging around here somewhere. You just hear it go ding at like midnight.
Oh God. But yeah, like that just shows you like it's you know, it goes back to like, the Lambo, people associate that with money, but something of the same or similar value, they might not, like a house or whatever. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Same idea, but it's pretty interesting. What I'm excited for is to roll with the classic car and Stitch at the same time.
Yeah, summertime, baby.
see what people have to say about that. That's gonna be pretty cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we got another cool car coming in today. We might as well talk about that.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of on the docket.
Yeah, coming up pretty soon.
Pretty quick here. He said he's gonna pick it up and come.
Sweet.
Essentially, Ben and Brad have their aspect of the toy shop that does all the wrapping and all that jazz, and then one of these guys that I know up in Edmonton just purchased a new bull, and he wants to bring it down, so it's gonna be super cool. And he had a shitty experience purchasing the car, so we're gonna try giving him a cooler vibe and experience when he takes him once he gets transformed. But it'll be cool. That's kind of like a depth of that we want to do, and especially like what Brad and Ben want to do, just really change the scene on that and just be different and give more of a better experience.
Sure. Just going the extra way. Whatever dealer, whoever he got that car from, it wouldn't have cost them anything else to go that extra step to make him feel like.
Or if it did, it was very minor.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet this guy. I haven't met him yet, but I'm sure he's worked his ass off for that vehicle, and it's kind of like a. Not as satisfying. It's
shitty.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be rattled. I'd feel like I don't want the car.
Oh yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll do something good, and we'll be getting some good video and photos once it's all done, and be able to share it with you. And Ben and I will be in and out of the channel too, and working on some in progress videos there, and just sort of trying to spread it over all three of us, really.
Totally. So if you guys actually look on the channel, there's the Stitch vlogs, and then Brad and I do the shooting the Beep series, and then we're gonna have underneath that where Brad and Ben showcase a lot of the cool stuff that's gonna come through the toy shop for different jobs or works, or just even just coming to say hi. They're gonna work on that, and as we go down the channel list, I'm going to fade less and less out, and they're going to predominantly fade more and more in. So we kind of just become more of a team, and everyone kind of sheds the spotlight on their own angles and what they're strong in, and just have some fun. So that's obviously in the making as well, so you guys should stay tuned for that.
Yep, for sure. And something we're trying to make this, a channel or a place that hasn't really been all together at one point.
No, I don't think it has. I feel like there's a couple people that are doing the podcast style, like Stradman's doing his radio thing now. Yeah. But I don't think it's like you said. I don't think there's a whole lot of incorporation of all the aspects.
And these guys will get their car wrapped or whatever, and they'll be in the video of so and so just did the car. Huge thank you to them or whatnot. But we want to show just the interesting cars that are just going to come through as Ben and I's clients. That there's going to be unique stuff, and Ben has an amazing skill, and just showcasing that sort of the process with all that, and just being totally transparent and trying to
and just have fun, just add another depth.
Exactly.
Have some fun with it, and change it up for people and for you guys too, so it gives you guys a little bit of everything to see. They can take a peek from from what goes down on the back end to all that, and as we keep growing, we'll put our events in the channel again, so there's multiple layers of depth for everyone to kind of see, and then we'll continue with the podcast once a week, and there'll be a lot of cool stuff. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. And especially once summer hits and being able to get out and drive more all together,
it'll be cool.
Right now it's just sort of me following Mihai wherever he wants to go, so I'm excited to branch away from that.
Right now it's a whole lot of one person driving and the other people watching. It's like a video game.
Pretty much. No, it's gonna be super cool, and lots of stuff coming, and we'll be sharing everything here. So
it's super sweet.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll get this posted, and
we'll see you guys on the next one. Again, let us know if there's any topics you guys want to hear or talk about. We kind of brief, not too in depth on costs and stuff today, but if there's anything that you guys want to hear, obviously comment below in the video or DM us or whatever, and we can definitely make a chat about it. You know, if you guys have any questions, we can answer questions too, because I'm sure there's a lot.
Yeah. For sure.
There, so, but again, yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Great. See you next week. Thank you.